I'm delighted we're joined by Paul Burstow, our conference chair for the third year running. Paul has extensive first-hand knowledge of our care sector as Minister in the Coalition Government. Paul's been working with us for the last couple of years as a senior advisor, developing our lobbying and influence and activity. Paul plays a key role in setting the overall direction for technology-enabled care. So much so, he joined us and agreed to be our president in the summer. So without any further ado, may I welcome our conference chair, Paul Burstow.
Good morning. Is anyone out there? Good morning. Good. Okay, so everyone is still here and with us. So I'm really pleased to be here to welcome you to this conference. You've already heard Alison set out a busy programme for today and the work that we've been doing as an organisation over the last 12 months. So really what I want to do primarily today is talk about the white paper that we are launching on this stage today, and we will be talking about in other plenary sessions and in breakout sessions during the rest of this day. And before I do that, I would be remiss if I didn't do a couple of housekeeping things as the chair for this conference. The first one I ought to just quickly say is that there will be no fire drill today. So in the event that the alarms go off, it is a fire or some other incident that requires us to vacate the building, and the staff will direct us accordingly. So we're not expecting anything, so that's just to make sure people are clear about that. And then the other thing just to say, it's always helpful if people turn their phones to silent, or at least, if not that, turn them off, so that we can have concentration on the presentations that we're going to hear during the course of the day. So what I want to do over the next 20 minutes or so is say a little bit about the white paper that we are launching today. But I think first, possibly, it would be good if I said something about the last 12 months. It was last year, on this platform, I launched a white paper called Putting People First. We've just heard Mark talk about some of the challenges about how we as a sector think about and include as this integral part of the way we design services and design the offerings that the businesses and service providers in this room are putting forward to commissioners and purchasers of services, that the lived experience of the service user being absolutely key to that. And in that white paper, what we argued, and I think it resonates very strongly with the points that Mark has just been making, really was that what people are looking for is not a bundle of services, although services may be what are necessary to achieve what they are looking for, which is, in the end, the ability to carry on the life that they are leading, to be able to maintain the rhythms and daily purposes that they are interested in. In other words, having a life, not a service. And that was at the core of the white paper that we published last year. I think what it was really about was arguing very strongly to commissioners that what the sector was offering was an engagement and a partnership with them to actually redesign and think about services in different ways. So this was the white paper we launched last year. We made 4 particular points as part of that. We argued really that there should be an agnostic approach to the technology. We also said that there should be a collaborative approach to commissioners. In other words, we wanted to partner with commissioners to bring additional skills to enable them to think about how they could redesign services. We also argued that we needed a much, much more robust approach to benefit realisation, that we needed to be able to evidence costs avoided or costs reduced as a result of the deployment of technology-enabled care. And we, in the report, pointed to a number of examples of where that was happening on the ground. And we'll hear more at this conference of some work that has been commissioned by NHS England that may help go further in that particular direction. And we also said that evidence is absolutely key, but we need action that is informed by evidence, not necessarily entirely evidence-based action. In other words, there is enough evidence now that is actionable that should be driving us beyond limited piloting and limited scale activities to genuine deployment both within the National Health Service and within our social care systems as well. In other words, we need to be ambitious and we need commissioners to be thinking beyond what they have done so far. So what have we done in the last 12 months to translate this set of ambitions and ideas and challenges in that white paper into practice? Well, we've run a sandpit event with NHS England and their new models of care team, bringing technology-enabled care providers and tech providers together with them to debate and to exchange ideas. We've also worked with NHS Digital, developing a memorandum of understanding, which we will use as the platform to take forward further thinking about the shift from analogue to digital, which I'm going to talk about in a moment. Alison's already referred to the work that we've been doing with the Care Quality Commission, really to map out and understand the boundary between where regulation ends and industry standards begin, to make sure that we're clear where there is overlap, that we're clear where there are gaps, and the ultimate goal for both of us is to ensure that people get safe, reliable, quality services. And obviously we're keen to make sure that the QSF, the Quality Standard Framework that we launched at this conference last year, really becomes that go-to standard beyond the regulation role of regulators across the 4 home nations. And the final thing we argued for very strongly as part of that platform was that we needed to be working with a variety of stakeholders to get stakeholders to start thinking about the impact of the switch from analogue to digital that is going to occur in the next few years. And that led us to convening an event earlier this year, which brought together over 50 different stakeholders from Ofcom, various telecoms providers, and others to start talking about some of the implications of this switch. And that has led us to publish the report which we're going to be talking about today. So let me just give a bit of context. And I think really this is a question a question that our report poses very strongly, and I pose to everyone in this room and people beyond. Do we, as a tech sector, as a technology-enabled care and support sector, want to be the disruptors, or do we want to be displaced by those who are the disruptors, looking at this sector and thinking about whether they can enter it and take the opportunities that entry to this market offer them? I think we have to therefore be thinking very much about how technology-enabled care in most sectors of our economy technology has already in most sectors of our economy begun to have a really transformative effect. But when it comes to health and care, it has found it much harder so far to get that transformation. The switch to digital increasingly will drive that innovation and create opportunities which we need to be focusing on. And why do I say, do we want to be the disruptors or do we want to be the displaced? Well, I just came across this particular piece of information, the top 5 publicly traded companies globally. And what you can see there is just how markedly things have shifted over the last 10 years from a largely petrochemical, energy-based businesses at the top of the table to now very clearly technology, knowledge-driven businesses being in the vanguard, being the most influential businesses, the biggest businesses in our economy. And clearly, we're seeing also this amazing convergence that's taking place, a remarkable convergence between a variety of technologies that are remaking economies around the world and are empowering consumers. And I think that's another thread that I would pick up from what Mark has already talked about, how increasingly consumers are shaping for themselves the sorts of ways in which they want to lead their lives and the way in which they accept and incorporate technology into their lives to do just that. But of course, in the case of health and social care, there are also other factors that drive and create opportunities for this sector. And we talked last year and the year before, and we have David Behan from the Care Quality Commission on this stage later on today. But we've had a very clear set of messages from the regulator, particularly in England, about the precarious state of our health and social care system, particularly our social care system. And over the last couple of years, we've had a succession of reports that have come as close as a government-funded statutory agency can come to giving government and all of us a warning about us approaching a tipping point. And now in the report that came out just last week, looking at the state of care in England, saying that the future quality is precarious as the system struggles with increasingly complex demands. So this is a burning platform, and in that burning platform there is an opportunity for this sector. But there are also threats and challenges, and that is that we are currently very largely a sector based on some very tried and trusted technology. technology that Alexander Graham Bell kicked off in 1876 with a phone call to Mr. Watson. I think that was probably the phone he used, in fact. And that technology is safe, reliable, provides the security and connectivity that has been the foundation of many tele-alarm services and safe call services for many, many decades. But we are going to see a significant change, and it's coming soon. We're going to see that switch that Alison was talking about, that switch over the next few years, maybe as soon as 2023, but certainly by the mid-2020s, switching off the current analog infrastructure on which the industry is largely based and upgrading it to digital. And really our interest from the point of view of a trade body, the point of view of the TSA, is how we ensure that the peace of mind that the service offerings that currently are out there, the services that are providing that safety and that first response, that those are safe and secure and that risks are mitigated. And when you consider that there are 1.7 million people who are connected to those services in this country at the moment, our paramount concern in all of the work that we've been doing so far around this shift to digital is the reliability and safety of telecare and social alarm services, and that is not compromised. And that's the approach that we're making to government about this, that's the approach we're making to regulators, and we want to place, through the report that we're launching today, that very firmly on the table as the paramount focus for the transition that is taking place. And that's why we're also saying this in the report. We're saying there is an urgent need to plan, that we need to make sure that we are mitigating those risks, and they are real risks, and we need to make sure we understand just how significant those risks are, how likely they are. And we also, at the same time, need not to be so blinded and distracted by mitigating risk that we don't also see the opportunities sitting in front of us as well, that we also take the opportunity to realise the full potential of not just doing more of the same. So again, the report poses this question: are we, as a sector, ready for digital disruption? And how do we want to place ourselves as the disruptors in this, to actually disrupt the way in which healthcare is delivered so that digital becomes a much more dominant part of the way in which the system operates? And why is that? Well, it's because of this. A typical household by 2020, it is forecast, will have up to 29 devices connected to the internet. 29, it's about 8 at the moment, 29 just in the space of 2 years. Significant exponential growth is taking place. This just demonstrates a few of the things that we're talking about here. Many consumer-selected devices, voice-interacting systems, smart washing machines, smart fridges, smart meters, you name it. The opportunities that are already being exploited both domestically here in the UK, but also looked at internationally, to bundle and use these things that are commonplace to be part of an overall package of technology-enabled care is becoming increasingly the prospect. And a digital shift will enable this even more so. But time is not with us. I've said already that the timescales that we're talking about are relatively short. The telecoms industry has already started its work around this shift to digital networks. So time is short. And the tech sector needs to be preparing. And the TSA, as an organisation, the work we've started over the course of this year that's culminating today with this white paper, is all about how we understand the complexities of this change management task and how we go on to work with you to make the very best of that change. But I think we also have a message for the telecoms sector as well, because they obviously hold the key to the way in which this is done, and done in a safe, risk-mitigated way. At the moment, we don't have definitive plans and timetables for that switch. We need those timetables and plans. We need that engagement. We need that transparency to have the certainty to manage that transition well for the people that we are here to serve. And that's why the report has a very clear call to action. It has a call to action to us all that we need to recognise the opportunity, that we need, as Mark I think was challenging us very well earlier on, to tune in to the aspirations of people that would use these services. And we also need to make sure that we don't just carbon copy the analogue models of service delivery into a digital world that could offer so many more potential opportunities. And we also are saying there's a challenge for government too, that government and others, the regulators, whether it's the regulators of care quality, whether it's the regulators of the telecom sector, whether it's the telecom infrastructure providers, they also need to be working together to get this clarity about the timetable, to get the clarity about testing products to make sure that they are safe, and we'll hear more about that later on. So we are proposing in this white paper, and if you want to see what it looks like, I should have waved it around at the beginning. This is the white paper we're launching today. When you go out of this hall today, there will be copies of it available for you. We really want your feedback and reflections on what it has to say. We have 5 actions that we are calling for. First, we think there needs to be a roadmap agreed between the telecoms infrastructure providers, Ofcom, the sector, about the stages and steps that need to be taken to test, to ensure that risk is mitigated, and at the same time that we are looking at these new consumer models of access to the services, so that we are making sure that those alternatives and new ways of doing business are being considered as well. We also are engaging, as Alison has said, with the care standards regulatory bodies across the UK, and we want to make sure that what we see emerging from this transition is an environment that is friendly to and supportive of, enabling of, the sort of shifts that we need to see in terms of technology-enabled care services. And we also need a standards framework, of course, in terms of the outcome standards that our QSF has, but other standards frameworks as well, supporting innovation and new models of service as well. And we also want to be developing new models of tech delivery. And therefore, one of the things that TSA is announcing as part of its launch today is that we will be leading work to understand what the tech marketplace and how it can develop in terms of greater consumer access to this. There's a huge self-funder market that is growing all the time, and we need to make sure that that market is available, as well as expecting to see the public sector as the channel. And none of this is going to be easy, and none of this is going to come without a price tag. And one of the things that we've estimated, the cost of an upgrade of the sort that we envisage is going to be necessary, is a cost of about 150 to 300 million over a number of years. And this figure is a figure that we, on behalf of the industry and with the industry, need to be going into bat to discuss with government to work out how we might find funding sources and channels to actually realise that sort of investment. Again, with that key thing of mitigating risk. And in order to get all the parties around the table, we need clear leadership. The TSA is already providing much of that leadership. We convened events this year. But we also need government to be much, much more closely involved in providing leadership as well, both at an international level and in each of the nations. And then finally, fifth action that we are outlining is that we need to have a coordinated communication strategy. This is something the industry needs to be doing collectively to share information as it becomes available, to make sure that there is clear messaging and it's all clearly understood. And when I wrote the foreword for this report, having really reflected quite hard on the messages that come out in the detailed work, what I really thought most critically I wanted to leave with you, and I wanted to leave with others beyond this room that will be making decisions that will affect all of us and the 1.7 million people that we are here serving today, is that this is not something that can be seen simply as a nice-to-do thing. It is absolutely a must-do. This is going to happen. This is not a classic case of, well, it's never going to happen, and then it has, and it's too late to do anything. This is one where we have to plan and do it effectively. It's an absolute must-do. So later on today, Steve Sadler, who is an associate with TSA, will be saying much more about some of the technical details. We'll have a whole platform of speakers addressing various aspects of this on the main stage from 2 p.m. So I hope you will find that useful. But that's what this document's all about. It sets out an agenda for action. It sets out the challenge, but it's not a challenge that we should be fearful of. It's an opportunity that we should grasp. And that's why I'm really pleased to be launching this white paper today.